Welcome to Sarai Circle, the launch session of Sarai Circle PC Mentorship Program for 2025. Archana will join in 5 minutes. So, meanwhile, I'll give you a brief introduction about the course. Sarai Circle PC Mentorship Program for 2025 would be a 10-month long course. And just like the medieval sarais, which were the important way stations for the traders along their long journey, Sarai would be acting as a go-to place for your to ease out your journey, and the rest of the details can be given later. Please enjoy the session. Archana will be joining in few minutes. Hi Archana. Archana is here. A person who needs no introduction. The rank AR 40 says it's all. My friend Archana, now officially Archana PP IAS, to take over the floor. Hi Archana, the floor is yours.
Hi. So basically, I don't want to make this a very long session, and I would want to take your questions also. So what I thought would be important from my perspective, I've just planned it through. So I'll just give a brief of all those parts. And after that, if you have any questions, we can take it. I think in between when we take questions, it might be a little difficult to manage. But in case if you feel ki it is a very relevant question to what I'm saying, ask the question then and there. That's also fine. Okay. Firstly, starting from what are the things that you should know when you're starting to write an answer or you're starting to prepare for GS part of the UPSC mains. As you all know, the GS mains is the exam portion and the prelims is just a, what do you say, qualifying round. Though the prelims is very tough and it has become very random these days, but the exam is actually the mains. So you have to be prepared for the mains even while you're giving the pre, so that once you clear the pre, you are able to attend it with full practice and preparation, and you don't find it very haphazard. And at the same time, whatever you prepare for the mains, except very few sections like the ethics or the world history part, most of it come for the prelims exam anyway. So you'll be better prepared for prelims as well. Just a few months before the prelims, you can dedicate for complete pre-preparation. Before that, you can actually have a good grasp over the GS part and the optional, like if you have whatever your option is, that one. So with respect to my area, the GS, the first thing that you need to know that everyone says is the syllabus of the GS exam. It is a very elaborate syllabus, unlike the prelims. So read through the syllabus well. And the second thing that you have to do is see the previous year questions, the PYQs, you see it through, and then try to identify what are the subtopics and try to link it to the syllabus. And then after that, from the subtopics, you try to identify what is the percentage of marks or the percentage of questions that are asked from that particular area. See, why I want you to do this before you start the preparation is only then you would know how much time and effort you have to dedicate for each part of the syllabus. Otherwise, what happens is we tend to do a PhD in all of this, but our ultimate goal is to clear the exam. And if you are interested in something, you can take it up later. So just to show an example, I would just share my screen. Yeah, this is something that I got from the GG channel. His channel is there on Telegram. So this is where I found it. I used to use this. This is just the UPSC syllabus which is written here. I just want you to know how I did it. That is what I'm focusing on here. So GS1, if you take, there are three parts, right? The history part, the society part, and the geography part. So when you start to prepare, firstly see what is the percentage of that questions that come from each section. Like for example, I have split up here, it is around 30%. This is just for 1 year, around 30%, 36%, 34%. This you find for all, like at least for 5 years, you go back and just find out and find an average. Then you would know in what area, what more questions are generally asked for UPSC. We don't know whether the same trend would be repeated the next year, but this is the best bet that we have. Do we have all time in the world to do all of it? No. So we have to follow at least a little bit of the trend and also be prepared for some other question which might come up. Like for example, for many years, there was no question for post-independence India consolidation part. 2 years, the questions popped out from this area. But you see the marks, it's 10 and 15. Like, would you waste a whole lot of time just to earn that? Same goes for world history. So I'm not saying ki this is the exact right way to do things, but with the limited amount of time that we have and the amount of resources that we have, I think this is the right way to focus. So coming to GS2 part, if you see polity, this is what I had done for the last attempt and kept. Okay, so it has only till 2022. So the polity part, which is this part, has around 120 marks. Then I have written the initial part, like the historical underpinnings comparison. The first part, the first subtopic in polity, there has always been a question and there has been high marks in this area. So I've written ki there is a sure question. And then in the ministry department executive part, what I have written is like there has been 25 marks in 2 years, but otherwise it's 0. So generally it's 0. What importance do I need to give it? Accordingly, I have to decide. Similarly, the other part, this is very important. Every year question comes. I have marked federalism, a sure question comes. Here also a sure question will be there. Like that I have marked. Similarly, the next social justice section, around 50 to 60 marks come. Governance, around 50 marks comes. It has been very varying for governance, but then around 50 marks can also come. So you should be prepared for it. And IER, it is a sure 50 marks around. So this is the way you have to understand different topics of the syllabus and what importance you need to give. Similarly, when you come to the GS3 part, there is a lot of misconception with respect to GS3. So GS3, when you see the whole economy section, it has around 100 marks out of the total marks it is there, which is the major chunk of questions come from the economy part. But then when you divide the economy part, you see that around 50 questions come from the initial part of economy and around 50 questions come from just agriculture. So you have to be very much prepared for questions from agriculture because it is generally repetitive as well. For example, if you see, there is a part called the food processing sector. Food processing questions. You see, every year a question comes from there. And in some year, there has been around 37 marks also from there. So accordingly, you have to be prepared. Now coming to disaster management, environment, science, tech part. You see disasters and disaster management, around 25 marks get asked from there. And the similar portion you can also club with the GS1 part. GS1 geography, disaster portion comes. So these two you can club and prepare together. Similarly, environment around 35 marks, 50 marks have come. And you can see that the importance of environment compared to in pre, it is lesser in mains. This is the trend that we see. And then science and tech and this area, the science and tech area, around 40 marks are asked. But the problem is the questions that come in science and tech, if you go through, there is a little difficulty in preparing that because sometimes a very specific question comes up which you might not know answer to. And a lot of people, if you see, will not know answer to. So it is fine that you don't invest a lot. But for science and tech, I'll just show you a format that I had prepared and I had used. And then security. This is the easily scoring part. Around 50 marks get asked here. In GS3, you can actually prepare answers for a lot of questions from security and you can be ready for whatever questions come your way. Okay. This is how I went through preparing for different topics. Like according to the weightage that is there in the exam, that is how much importance you have to give it. Now starting the preparation. For starting preparation, what are the primary things that you need? The first thing is content. For content, what do you need? What are the sources available to prepare, which has a lot of variety, starting from the standard textbooks that are available to us. Then there are a lot of online resources available. Like for example, there is this toppers note, that toppers note. Then the current affairs newspapers are available. Current affairs magazines are available. Then there are mock test series that come. That is also an important resource. And solved PYQs which might come. And on all of it, you have your own self-made notes as well. So these are the sources or the content that you have available when you are preparing for names. But where do you want to restrict it? That is what primarily decides like how are you going to prepare. So my thing when I used to decide like what to study and what not to, initially when I started to prepare, it was most of what is the exam to understand that and what is the syllabus that to understand that. I used to read through the NCRTs, all of that. I never used to prepare notes from them. If I find something very interesting that I have to read through, I would mark in the same book. This is what I used to do with standard textbooks that we have. Then others notes, generally, I don't used to refer because I have a problem recreating what is there in others notes, like not answers, specifically others notes. I'm not very comfortable with, so I didn't used to do that. And I feel if you have, there are people who do that. But find out a way, like if you're reading the standard books, why do you want to go for someone else's notes as well? I think there are other resources that you can bank upon. Okay. And then whatever I used to study, the primary question that I used to ask myself is, why am I reading this? And my answer was, if I'm reading something, I should be able to reproduce it in the exam, either in the pre or mains. It is good to have a lot of knowledge, and there are a lot of friends who are very knowledgeable among us. You might also be, but the thing is, why are we here primarily is first to clear this exam. That is our goal. And after exam, you have ample amount of time to study all of it. So my primary goal of studying something was, can I use this in my pre, or can I recreate in the mains? So whatever you read or whatever you study, you should be able to recreate that. Otherwise, it is of no worth for this exam point of view. That means if you're studying a topic, the maximum space you can write about it is 3 pages. If it is a larger 15-mark question, and if it is a 10-mark question, it is just 2 pages. Plus, UPSC never asks questions which are like you are going to answer just with the data. Like, for example, what is artificial intelligence? The UPSC never asks questions like that to write for 2 pages. It would be, what is artificial intelligence in its applications or its challenges, something like that would be there. Which means you just have to write half a page of content. This the basic bare content rules, what I'm saying. The other part is analysis. So that comes in the second stage of preparation. It is not the basic content that you have. So whenever you're preparing, try to restrict yourself in such a way. So initially when you're preparing, just read through so that you have a larger understanding of things. Like, for example, if it is history, you need to know what is the chronology of events. So if a new question pops up also, you will have some idea as to where does this question belong in the entire syllabus of history. So you should have a larger understanding of it. But for specific preparation, you should restrict yourself to like 5 to 10 points from a specific area. If you have such a good memory, it is good. You can remember 10 points. My idea was to just know 5 points. If a new topic is there or a new bill is there, for example, I would just study 5 importance points from there. Anything else is just put in from common sense or the general reading or the general understanding. Then content part, this is what I used to do with static books. And then with respect to newspaper, I used to regularly read newspaper because I generally like that. There are people who doesn't and who just focuses on current affairs magazines. That is also fine. But newspaper, when I used to make notes, I used to restrict myself to just 1 page of notes. If at all I'm taking notes, it would be just restricted to half a page or 1 page, which I used to do on online medium only, taking the notes. And it would be more of examples rather than suppose a new bill comes, like the Data Privacy Act came. So when it comes, I would not write about it in the note because I know that is going to come in a current affairs magazine. But if there is an editorial on it, or if there is an example for it, which might not be relevant or important to someone else, but I find it very relevant and I find it interesting, such kind of things I used to note, like very unique content or a unique opinion. The entire editorial might be restricted to just 1 line of your GS answer, but that is fine because since you read it, you would remember it. So this is what I used to do with newspaper notes. Otherwise, current affairs, I used to just read through newspaper every day and then prepare from current affairs magazines. And one tip I can give is when you prepare for current affairs for mains point of view, you actually prepare it like you're preparing for pre. The advantage is then you're having a little less content. You don't have to read through all the analysis. For example, we can take the same bill or act. When it comes, if in a vision note, for example, if you're referring vision current affairs, in vision note, what comes is, this is the analysis karke, they would have given 5-6 points. But if you actually read through those points, you would understand that for 3 or 4 points among that is just common sense points. Like it might be saying something about privacy. It might be saying something about data issues in our system, like data errors are there, human errors are there, the biometric issues will be there. So all of this would be something that you can actually think of as a common man. You don't try to recollect all of that. Just try to find 2-3 points which are very unique that you might not be able to imagine on your own, which are very specific to that thing. So that is why I'm saying you try to recollect things from a prelims point of view. Then you would actually filter out a lot of content and come to a bare minimum which is needed. Okay. And then there was a question about self-note, which I think that I have already addressed. Why are you preparing notes is the first thing that you should ask yourself. For me, it was to be able to reproduce it in the exam for the mains, and for prelims, it should be familiar so that I can tick off that statement which is there. So for that, I used to have very restricted notes. GS mains, some of the notes that I have, I can show you. This is what I prepared for this attempt. So this is 1-page note for economy revision that I have done. So this is what I did. Like, this is a content that everyone knows. Everyone would write this percentage of CVA, this percentage of employment to each sector. Okay. So this is how I used to do it. And this I have segregated according to the syllabus. Like the first part is inclusive growth, right? So I have written the Oxfam report, which I may be able to recreate there. The HDA index I have written. Financial inclusion index I have written. Because this is an area that generally every year there will be question. UBI, where was the model piloted? There was a NABARD survey which came in the newspaper. This is from newspaper actually. And if a question comes from this area, what conclusion I can write? This I have intended to be conclusion. Okay. Antyodaya, I can write, or Kubri, like quasi-universal basic rural income was suggested in the newspaper. You can end with the DPSP. So this was an area where generally questions came from inclusive growth. So you don't have to sit and think from there, what conclusion am I going to write? Because you are already ready with a conclusion in areas where questions are generally asked. Similarly, for employment, what is the CMIE data, unorganized sector, formal sector? What are the measures in job creation that is already taken? A lot of schemes I have written. See, what happens is when you have so much notes in one area, how much time would you have to revise this? You should be able to read through your last minute content in just half an hour. Because GS3 it is still fine. For GS2, it is between the two exams that you are going to read it, right? So have some content like this. It can be a 1-page, 2-page content. I have made this in tab, but before attempts, when I didn't have a tab, I used to do it on a paper. Tax to GDP ratio, like budget section is there. If a question comes from there, Kosh Mulo Dand, this I may be able to write in that area. Infra, energy, like subsidies, generally a question comes, what all kinds of subsidies are there in India? The Raitu Bandhu scheme, MSP generally question comes every year. PDS question comes. Similarly, this was for economy. For science and tech, there will be an application part of it. Or science and tech question, you should have a lot of dimensions to think of. So what I used to do was I used to have frameworks to write exam. Like for example, if science and tech question comes, any technology question comes, what all can I think of? One is different sectors that are available in India, health, education, social justice. Then different section wise, youth, women, disabled. You should also think about startups when you're thinking about science and tech. It is a section for startup is a section when you see from a science and tech angle. Okay, and then migrants, elderly. Then here it would be economic sector, agri, manufacturing services, disaster management, governance, taxation angle, grievance. So what I mean to say is you don't need to take any of this down. You can do this on your own. This is nothing out of the blue. What I am saying is I used to have frameworks. Like there is a statement in science and tech, developments and their application and effects in everyday life. So what is everyday life? So I used to split it up like individual, relationships, health, education, politics. Okay. Then coming towards ethics. This I had some way forward written for science and tech questions. Like R&D should be made. You should pool resources. India stack can be used. Aadhaar, Povini, Sanjeevani. Regulatory sandbox. Government should be the facilitator role. For someone who already has a good vocab, it's very good. For others, note down such words. Even for ethics, I just made some dimensions and kept like, even when you're writing answers, if you draw something like this and do examples here, that would also be nice. You can think of n number of dimensions. Just think of the GS syllabus. So these, according to me, these were my notes. Some diagrams that generally I can draw, I used to draw and keep. Can I make flowcharts for an issue? This is some example I found in the newspaper. Now I don't remember what. This should be of some use to you. So that is my only intention. Like whatever I have done all through the years, I just want you to have an idea from my point of view. Now this is basically GS preparation part. And if you need subject wise, what I have referred or what I have not, I can give that. I can write and give that. And that is just bare content. I don't want to waste your time on that. Here we can utilize it for something better. So then coming to the second part, or the important part, is whatever you're studying, you should be able to write it. The examiner only sees those 2 or 3 pages that you write and they judge you based on that. So even if you know a thing, you don't know a thing, it doesn't matter as long as you write an answer which is convincing to someone who sees it. So what are the important things when you start writing an answer? Like, this is just a beginner level and what I'm trying to mention. First thing is, get few questions, previous year questions from whatever you have studied. Just thinking till this moment, whatever I've studied, with that knowledge, I'm going to write. Even today, someone who has not started preparing for UPSC, if you want to try writing, you can try it. That is what it is. Every moment that you write, you would improve. You can't wait for the moment when you finish studying and you start writing. Okay. So first write an answer. Then if you have friends or someone, just show it to them. Someone who's more experienced, if you have a mentor, show it to them and they would give a review, which is very bad if you're writing for the first time, or you might be extremely good at it, then it is okay. Otherwise, it is going to be the worst answer that you write. It is okay. Take a feedback, rewrite the same answer with the feedback. The same question, the same answer. Never think of the time or anything, just start writing. Do this for a while, few questions. Then try to find answer copies of people who have cleared the exam or who have got good scores in the exam, like whose papers are actually good. Try to find those which is available online enough. And if you have physically friends available who have written names, then well and good. That is also fine. Then you would know what is the way generally people write the answer. So every exam, there is a conventional way of writing the exam and writing the answer. So for UPSC, it is a very structured answer that is needed. For example, when I had been sitting for reviewing papers of others in the institutes along with my friends, so when I see an answer, how do I judge it? I have just a few minutes to judge it and give it a mark. The primary thing would be it should have good content. At least it should show good content. That there is enough content in there. If a question is asked, the first statement, the introduction, fine, you can give a general statement or any other content. But the first heading that you should have should indicate that you have understood the question and you are writing answer to it. That heading should mean that, like if it is a why question, your heading should answer that. If it is a what question, accordingly it should be modified according to the keyword or according to the question. You have to do it. Primary thing is that. So when you get a question, try to break it into parts. Identify what is the core minimal one word thing that is asked there. Divide the space according to those parts and start writing. Second thing is, every line that you write, it should be concise. What I mean to say is, initially when we write, we would write very long sentences. But when you rewrite an answer that you have written, make sure that you minimize the number of words that are used. How can you do that? Try to cut off the unnecessary parts, like and, through, this. You cut off that and make it the most concise statement possible. When you do this for whatever you have written again and again, your way of writing actually becomes concise. Over time, it would improve. That is what happened with me. Then another question that is generally asked is it paragraph or points? So I generally go with points, and whenever I have reviewed someone's answer paper, I found points better. Maybe that is my line of thinking. I would show my answer sheet to you, how I used to write. Okay. So the first thing is you should have content. Second is you should have good structure with an intro, different parts addressed, the question addressed in different headings, and you should have a conclusion. This means that you are a very structured person. You think of something very analytically, and this is how someone who has not seen you or talked to you judge you based on how you write. Okay, so this is the only way you can show it there. And this is the primary initial step to start writing an answer. And after that, as you progress in answer writing, you would have other new things to take care of. One is you need better edge in the answer. You need better time management. Like initially, you don't need to see the time. You need better time management. And you need to find out how your answer can little stand out in terms of the others who are writing the exam in questions which are very average, and in extraordinary questions where you don't know the answer, where your answer can make the examiner feel like you know something about it, even though it might not be a perfect knowledge. So as you go through this advanced level of answer writing, what I used to do as an exercise was to brainstorm answers. So if I get a question from any of the mock test papers, I would think of few points. I might jot down a few points, like just in a very small point format. Okay, this is the point, and this is the example that I may write to it. This way I used to think and keep, or just jot it down somewhere. Then you read through the test series key. You compare both. Try to find what is the lacuna in yours. Sometimes your answers are actually better than test series keys. Acknowledge that too. Okay, just find, okay, they might have like a forum test series I've seen, they have good side headings, like you can actually reproduce that for any question that comes from economy. If you see economic question papers or polity, you can actually reproduce that. So try to find such things that you actually like, you have an interest in, and you can recreate. Don't try to write down everything. Just find four or five points that you find interesting and you think that you will be able to remember it, reproduce it in the paper. Okay. Then you can do half an hour sessions of writing. Like you try to find out around 7 minutes are needed for 110 marker. So in half an hour, how much marks you can complete. Accordingly, take that many number of questions and start writing. And when you write, never think this is a good answer or a bad answer. Never think what intro can I write, what conclusion can I write. Just write your heart out. Like let it be anything, just write it out. Without thinking, you write. Every day when you practice half an hour like this, what happens is your muscle memory or your mind memory is set in such a way that you won't waste time when you get a question paper. This is how you manage time. But second thing, you have to improve your quality. So after writing for half an hour, take half an hour off and then review what you have written. Just think of how could you write it better. Okay. Then if you have a mentor or someone, show them and find out the lacunas. Write it down, like very general points as to what is the lacuna in your answers. Are you not writing introduction? Okay, you're writing introduction, but you're stuck at what intro you need to write. Like you don't know when I get a question, what intro can I write? You'll be thinking, oh, should I write data? Should I write an example? Or should I write a definition? Okay, that is a lacuna. So this is like identify such points. Okay, if this is the lacuna, how are you going to address it? Which means if a question comes from this area, you should have a plan as to what will you write as an intro. If it is a what question, it is very easy. You can just start with the definition. Or if you have a good data, you can start with that. If you don't have anything, some policy you will be knowing about the government policy in that area, or some scheme you know of, anything you know of, just write it off. This way you will try to practice time as well as you will review your answers, and then it would get better over time. If you have someone to show your answers, well and good. If not, see your answer after half an hour, see your answer the next day, see your answer after 1 week. You would have new number of lacunas or points where you can improve on. Okay. I have got a question on some general areas as to what is the daily pattern of study that I used to do. So after pre and mains gap, it was mostly based upon the test series that I'm writing. I used to follow that schedule just to, because I didn't want to plan and waste my time, so that every week my content gets over. But otherwise, during the long gaps that I had, it was mostly I would divide the day into 3 parts. One part would be GS, other would be optional, and other few hours would be for current affairs or anything that I like. And as fillers, I would just listen to some toppers talk or some like any podcast about this. I used to do that. Like sometimes you don't want to sit and study. So I would just see the map, go through the atlas, all of that I used to do. This is how I used to manage all of that. Then GS mains answer writing specific. I'll just show you some of the answers that I have written. Can we take this as an exercise where I'll give you a question, you write an answer to it, and then we'll see my answer. What do you think of that? Can we do it like that? Okay, sure. I'll just give you a question and I'll give you 10 minutes. Then you write it off. Okay. I'm not saying this is the best answer that you would see. I just want you to know how to write and compare answers and identify what is good, what is bad with it. Okay. So I'll just dictate this question. Shall I dictate the question?
Sure.
Okay. So the question is a link between unorganized farming community and organized industrial sector, food processing industries play a key role in advancing rural economy. It's a 15-mark question, but I think I'll just give you 10 minutes.
The question is there on the chat box. A link between unorganized farming community and organized industry sector, food processing industries play a key role in advancing rural economy. So at least you brainstorm and put it on a paper. What sort of intro you would write, what sort of content you are planning to write, and those nuances. Just at least brainstorm. And yeah, you have time till 7 for 8.
It's you don't need to write full sentences. I would request everyone to please do it because anyway you are wasting time sitting here listening to this. So make use of this is what I would say. Okay, just 8 minutes will give you. You don't want to waste your time also, but do it. It would help. Hi, can we see answer? Are you guys done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So the first disclaimer is I'm not going to show you the best answer. I'm just going to show you what I wrote, and it has its own issues, which we'll see. Okay. Are you able to see?
Yes.
So can someone tell me what intro you wrote? It's okay, like whatever it is, it's okay.
Madam, I wrote that though India stands first in fruits production, second in milk production globally, uh, the average per capita income of Indian farmer is not much more than 6,000 rupees.
Okay, you have started with the stats, the data, na?
Yes,
Good,
madam.
good.
Yes, madam.
It's good, it's good.
So in the sense, it reflects the paradoxical situation that in spite of our bumper production, we are unable to
Hello.
reap the benefits of that produce.
I lost. Okay, so it is a very nice intro, but have you written it in a very concise format? Like it should not be very long. The same idea that you are conveying, it's very good, but ensure ki it's written in a very concise format. Like whatever you are trying to convey, na, just make it a one-liner. Try to make it a one-liner, or at max like 2 lines. You should be able to end it. It's a very good intro, very nice idea, but write it in such a way like that you can practice.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else?
Ma'am, I've started with the state of farming, the rural economy, and the unorganized nature of the farming community, basically elaborating on the keywords that were present in the question.
Okay. For starters, that is good. Okay. That's not bad. That is a good way. But how can you improve it? Like try to bring something new in every line that you write, so that every line that you write is worth it and it makes the examiner feel like they want to give you some more marks, like a half a mark more. Okay. What you have written is good, but what I'm saying is the same thing. If you would add some stats or some idea, then it would be even better. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
It is what I feel. Okay. See, now let's see what I have written. So this is what I have written. Food processing sector contributes around 12% of India's GDP and huge potential for rural economy. This is not a very good intro, I would say, if I'm thinking from my point of view, because it does not link a lot to what has been asked about farming and industrial sector linkage. But still, because since I have wrote this 12% of India's GDP, and this is a standard introduction that I have prepared for food processing sector. Okay. Not always I might remember something better, but this is the bare minimum that I could think of at that point and write. My only idea was I'm bringing in a new content which brings in some marks. And since I could not link the same idea in the first intro, what I did was I drew a diagram which links both. Right. Had I been able to convey what initially one of our participants has said in the first intro itself, if I had been able to convey both things, then it would have been decent enough. Since I could not do, I wrote something like this and drew this diagram so that at least I would fetch some marks out of this. This is something that everyone knows and everyone will be able to write. Since the linkage question was there, this is what I did. I wouldn't say this is the best way, but this is something that I did. Okay. Then what are the three different parts of the question that you have written? Can someone else tell me, like who have not already?
See, there is no language barrier here, so you can talk in any language that you're comfortable
English,
with. Yeah,
Hindi, Malayalam,
Hindi,
anything else?
Malayalam. Archana is okay with these 3 languages, so you guys can also talk in these languages.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible?
Albert.
Surplus production of rural agriculture effectively we can use extra income for rural people and matching demand and supply, eradicate middlemen to maximize output, usage of technology and MSME, gender divide, women will get more income. And
Albert, Can I just like interrupt you? I want to know what are the different parts of the question first. You are mentioning the points now. That is good, but I want to know what are the parts of the question. How would you divide it?
Okay, how the linkage will help in advancing rural economy
Okay,
after
that would
intro?
be your heading. Like your heading, subheading would be that.
Yes.
Okay. Huh.
Okay. Then I mentioned subheading of challenges also.
Then
Conclusion.
conclusion is like a how much part of the page would you dedicate for that?
Some 6 lines.
Okay. Okay. That's decent.
I didn't actually structure it exactly. Just jot it down only.
Okay. No, we will have some idea. Now, when we start to write itself, if there is a discuss question, we will have some idea. I have 3 pages. How am I going to manage the space? So that is what I wanted to know. Like your heading is good. Like I don't have any. So coming to my part, like what I would do is, so this is what I have written. Key role in rural economy. What is the role in rural economy? What are the challenges? And what is the way forward? And I'm not going into the points, but what is the mistake in this answer is that it is a discuss question, which says there's a link between these two and food processing sector can play a key role being that link between these two. Right. Okay. So what role does it play? Like, or as Albin said, that kind of heading also you can have, like, how is it contributing? So what is the role it plays? What are the challenges to it? And how to address those challenges and go forward so that FBI actually plays the linkage role that it is supposed to perform. This is what the question means, right? So how ideally I would want this answer to be is, at least from my point of view, if I have 3 pages, like 1, 2, 3 pages I have for it. My intro should come somewhere here. Okay, what is the role? It should start here itself. I should start writing that. End it somewhere around here. Start the challenges part here. End it somewhere around here. Write how to address these challenges and go forward here. So that in my case, the way forward is very less, which is a problem according to what I feel. Okay, so you should have an idea as to how will you address different parts of the question, primarily because marks for the examiner, they would have instructions to give marks to different parts. There would be subdivision. So if you have great points also, even if you don't give a feeling to the examiner, like had you guys been the examiner and seeing my answer, you would feel ki, okay, way forward, this girl has written only 1 line. How will I give marks for that part? Right. So think from that point of view, manage the space accordingly and write the points. Here I'm not discussing the points. I'll just show you how, like, I have reviewed the answer that I have written, right? So like like this is okay, theek hai, I somehow managed, the figure was good, but I didn't, these are the headings that I have written. So this is the heading that I'm giving. Some subheading, had I been able to mark it properly, it would have been better. This doesn't look neat. Okay, I could have written about small and marginal farmers who contribute about 86%. They would have an important role. Like infrastructure, I could have marked better. I could have written more points, like some points that I missed were this, like women empowerment, SHGs, contract farming, a lot of things that I missed. What are the challenges? Okay. What other stats could I have written? This I might have seen the key and then I might have added here some points. This is how, like, I used to do it. What I'm mentioning is this is how you should write, find the problems in the answer that you write, and then improve over it. Okay. What I'm trying to convey, are you able to follow that? Like, I don't want to show the points, how what I've written or you've written. It might be like people might have better points that you should see, but I think that you can do on your own. This is how you should review your answers. Okay. And some other answers, I'll just skim through. The thing is, for example, this was a generative AI question. And the conclusion that I have written is, challenges must be addressed via codification of legal milieu for the goal of hashtag AI for all of PM. It might seem like this is a very, very normal thing to do, or everyone would write this answer. No, how am I contributing? But actually, when you read answers, if you have a great point, it's good. But if you don't have that, at least write a very small, simple one. In this line, for me, the content is this part. PM had a goal of hashtag AI for all. So that is a content according to me. So I used to write it. Like, even if you feel it is very silly or a very small example, something very minute, still mention it somewhere if you can do it. If you have extraordinary points, well and good. At least mention a very common one. Okay. One more thing that I just wanted to show you is how I used to write. I don't know whether this is this might not be the best format, but this is what I used to do. I would have a point, I would have an example. I would have a point, I would have an example. Okay, here I didn't have one, so I just left it, I think. Address concerns of privacy, personal data protection bill, global AI platform. Okay. What I want to show is this is what I used to do. And if you can add any diagram anywhere, any map anywhere, that is well and good. Like here, this is not something that you guys don't know, right? It is just marked security challenge of Northeast. The question was about security challenges in Northeast, which are not contained. You don't need to read it. The question is about somewhere security challenges in Northeast. It was with respect to Manipur. But when I wrote something, I just drew a map and like marked something, just wrote security challenges of Northeast. At least to me, what I feel is this makes a little bit impact. It might add half a mark or 1 mark to my answer. Okay, this is how I used to try and do it. I don't want you to read through, that is why I'm skimming. I just want you to see. See, for example, here, it is a very basic thing, right? You see, temple architecture, I just drew a line here and Vindhyan divide and wrote Vesara and Nagara. Dravida. Land subsidence, there was a question. And I have just shown where Joshimath is. And this is how I used to get it reviewed by friends. Like question number 1, structure, you could have divided like this. Conclusion could have been more specific. Link it to Sendrai. Question 2 could have been better. Intro, what is the issue? More could have been included. More points needed. What is the issue? Examples could have been more. Again. So what I am trying to say here is, at least for me, what I have felt is, see, there are people who write extraordinary answers and score extraordinary marks. But what I have felt is, I've scored GS total of 455 and I've never written any extraordinary answer. But I used to write at least good answer for every question. This time when I wrote the exam, I made sure I practiced in such a way that I wouldn't wait, think for answers, and I would complete my paper in whole piece. So what happened was, at end of every exam, I had like 1 or 2 minutes sparing. And that is how I practiced time also. And the advantage was, if you write an extraordinary answer for one question, you might get 7 marks. But for the other question, you might get 1 or 2 marks. My idea was to get at least 5, 5.5 for all the questions, which would fetch me better marks. And I'm not a person who would sit and study a lot. So my idea was to manage with the bare minimum that I had in my hands. So if I knew one example, which I can use in agriculture, I would use the same thing in GS1 geography part as well. And I would use the same thing in ethics, saying ki this is an initiative by so and so person. It is an example of innovation. So I used to write one example that I have in all the 4 papers. I used to draw maps wherever possible, like any linkages to be shown. I used to do that wherever possible. See, what I'm trying to say is, this may not be the only way forward. You might be someone who studies a lot, who has a lot of content. But for someone to manage the exam with the bare minimum content, I think this is a way that you can think of. Like, try to see how a lot of people write answers. Try to find a way that you can do, like, or you can emulate. You can try that. If there are any questions, like, I'll take the questions. Any language is okay. Yeah, Abhishek, please.
Yeah, so hello, ma'am. Basically, I wanted to ask about the content preparation, note preparation, as in we study newspaper daily, and also there are monthly magazines. So it is always said that it's good to have all the content in one place. So I maintain a Word file for it. But sometimes while reading newspaper daily, I feel that many of the things are important. So the content gets overloaded and a lot of time is also wasted. and I'm not also able to devote much time to monthly magazines. So what is the right way in getting the right content and in a balanced format from all the sources? That is the magazine and newspaper.
Yeah, when have you started the preparation, or when have you started doing this process?
I have given this year's prelims. Though I appeared for forest, I wasn't able to clear the forest's cutoff, but the CSE was very much, as per my observation, good. So January to 2024, I have started with this.
Okay. So the thing is, one thing about making notes is you improve over time. Initially, you would have lots of news or content. You feel like everything is important. So initially, you will have this problem. Over time, you would improve. But one way to do it is primarily restrict whatever you are taking down. Like have a cutoff in your head. Key, you are going to take down only 4 or 5 points from newspaper today. Right? You should have off. And what I used to do was, when I used to read newspapers, I would just take down 4 or 5 points. And whenever I'm reading the monthly magazines, that was my what you mentioned, key, you should have all your notes in one place. The monthly magazine was my place. I would write all the content there, and whatever I am taking down as notes, the 4 or 5 points per day, that was mainly for my mains or some example I would write down. Content wise, I do not used to write more, primarily because you would anyway get it via the monthly magazine, right?
Okay,
This
so
was
we should focus on the edge part for the newspaper, not the basic core part for the.
Yeah, basics, because you will get it everywhere. Like monthly magazines will come, PT, like prelims time pe, they'll make compilation. Mains time pe, they will make compilation. You can't see all of it. So if you are going through monthly magazine, do one thing. When you are reading the monthly magazine, you might remember the things that you have already thought of, like you have read through the newspaper. Since you have already read in the newspaper, this is not a new content for you when you are reading in the monthly magazine. So it would it would be more familiar to you, and you would find it easy to read. So when you're reading the newspaper, it's like a prep for you to read the monthly magazine, right? And when you're reading monthly magazine also, it might not be very comprehensive. So if you find some data which you think you have to read through, Google it, find the content and write it over in the monthly magazine itself, so that you have only that one thing to refer to for current affairs, even for the coming prelims and coming for mains.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Like anything is okay.
Archana, you missed the essay part. So maybe
Yeah.
Dimple is already asking about essay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Adra is also asking the same. So just throw some light on essay.
Essay also, see, the primary thing about my preparation is I've not done a lot of things that generally people do for content, like specific preparation and all. What I used to do for my essay was, I never used to prepare separate content except reading through some quotes or something that I can find. I generally am a person who likes one-liners. I see a good one-liner, I like it. But I can't remember poems. I can't remember long stories or anything like that. But this I used to like. So quotes I used to prepare. Otherwise, I never prepared any good content for essays specifically. The one thing I was to do was, once I finish my preparation for GS, like the whole GS I used to prepare, I think that as my content, and then I used to brainstorm a lot of essays. Even if I get a philosophical essay, for someone had asked that, for that matter, I would just break them up into a very practical scenario. Like even if there is something like, I don't have a question with me now. Like if you have something, then if you have something with you, just can you post it? Like the person who had asked.
A ship in the harbor is safe, but that is not what ship is made for.
Okay. So if I get something like this, my idea would be, so I don't know whether this is the right way. This is what I used to do. My idea would be, like, ask questions. If you get a quote like this, like, what does it mean? If a ship in the harbor is not safe, it is not what it is meant to be. What does it mean in the real time scenario for people? Does it have any? This is how I used to brainstorm. Okay, this is not the structure. Like like I used to think from the GS line perspective. History are there any examples that I can quote to show that, okay, there has been revolutionaries, like stories, some world history, some world wars can I mention? Then is there anything from society angle? from women, child, elderly, like that. Is there something from that angle I can think of? And is there something from GS3, ethics, everything I used to think of? Then I would just randomly scribble all of that. Then I would think of from a time point of view, what can I think? History in the past, for the future, or governance, what I can think of. I used to think like that. Then I would ask it questions like what, why, how, what if it is not there, what if it is there, what are the, if I want to do this, what would be the challenges, what is the way forward. So from different perspectives, I used to think about the same that code that you have mentioned. So when you think like this, you will get a lot of content, like examples you will get, different dimensions you will get. Then the idea would be how to structure it in a very simple format where people can read through and find key. This is a relevant content that you are writing for the essay. Then if can you repeat the quote?
A ship in the harbor is safe, but it's not what ship is made for.
Okay, so then the question is what to write as an intro and conclusion. I generally, what I do is if I have two essays, the first essay, either one of the essays, I would make up a fictional story, like something, some person is there, like then this happened, all of that, some story I would cook up, and I would also end that essay with the story. Both essays I didn't used to do like this. One of that I used to do like this. And the next essay, my idea was to ask a few questions and start. So if I get this topic that is there, I would write some story regarding it, like some historically, some story you can think of. You can even think of like Gandhi's example, what happened. He showed the courage. He didn't just stand there and just went with the flow, which is why it finally culminated with India being free, like just that one incident. This is how I might start and end it. I'm just thinking very randomly, okay? This is how I might start and end it. And it been in between, my idea would be, why is it important to do it? Like, why should it should not be in the harbor itself? And secondly, what I would think of is, but what restricts us from doing it? Like what restricts us to the harbor itself? Why don't we plunge into the actual things that we have to do? What are the challenges to it? Then how do we address it and how do we go forward? Okay. And then I would also think the other part. Like sometimes we have to be in the harbor also, right? Sometimes we have to take care of things, be a little cautious, all of that. So these would be made parts of the essay. And in this, I would fill it with all the examples that I was thinking of from different dimensions. Okay. This is how I would write the essay. So you got what I'm saying, na? Okay. So this is how I would do it. So my primary thing was how I prepare is content. I would already have whatever I have in my GS preparation. Then my only idea was to brainstorm in maximum dimensions possible initially without restricting myself, just thinking all the different dimensions which is possible. Different temporally you can think of, dimensionally you can think of, section wise you can think of, kids, transgenders, all that you can think of. So that is how I think and get a lot of points. Then I would be thinking, how can I structure it? Like in a format where someone reads it, every paragraph of mine, when they read it, it should not feel like it is like a thread, just having a thread and just taking it to different directions. Like you should have the thread on one side, your essay topic should be there, and then you take through different examples. This is how I used to do the preparation and write it. So I think I scored better when I did this rather than when I over prepared for essay. But I used to brainstorm around like 50 to 60 topics. Like every day you brainstorm 1 to topic like for 10 minutes and have an idea as to how you write it. This is what I used to do.
Yes, madam. Thank
Okay.
you for your insights.
So there are n number of ways to do things. Just find out the right way that you feel like not what everyone who have cleared says is not the way that you might like. So figure out your way, have some trial and error, then you'll get to know what is better for you. Is that done? All the questions?
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
How to structure this question having different dimensions?
As in GES or essay, you're saying?
GS.
Question having different dimensions, how to structure, like different parts you mean, or?
Shall I read a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you post it? Like, can you post the
Being
question?
okay, I'll post it.
Meanwhile, so I thought of giving a detailed introduction or the course, but this is not going to be the time. So if you wish to join the program, I have given you the link over the chat box, or you can contact me. And we would be having more open sessions like this by experts, toppers. So that's about the Sarai Circle mentorship program. It is going to be a 10-month long program covering entire GS syllabus. Initially till Jan, it would be focusing more on mains. And after that, from Jan onwards, it would be a prelims intensive approach. So for further details, you can contact me. I have given you the number. Thank you.
No, this is very small question. Being objective.
This is I have written in last lap of Enlight
Okay, okay.
2 days back.
Yeah, being
So I
objective.
faced difficulty in structuring it. That's it.
Okay, okay. I'll just read through. Others also can read through and just find out like how will you write it. You can just think it.
My actual doubt is while reading this, we may having points of objectivity, impartiality, and separate points. How, but in that short 7 or 8 minutes, how can we give our best with what we have?
So if this
These
is
kind
a
of questions.
yeah. For these kind of questions, it actually depends upon how many marks are there. Now, this is a 10-marker question. So you don't have the time and space to actually separate the objective and impartial part is what I feel. Like if you do that, then it will take a long time for you to think as well, like to separate the impartial, separate the objective points. So how I think it is better to club them both. So it would be the question exactly here is, as an aspiring civil servant, what are the potential issues you see in balancing human relations while performing public duties? This is the exact question. And second part is how it can be maintained. Right? Do you think it can be maintained? So these are the two parts of the question. So the initial intro can be something about, it can be either about emotional intelligence, where that is how you can manage both, or that can be your conclusion. Like emotional intelligence can be your conclusion is what I feel. And intro may you can just mention like what emotions are, how they affect it, but how procedures and laws are needed. The importance of both of these you can make in the intro. And then your content actually starts from issues. What are the issues you foresee in balancing them? Like 4 or 5 points on it. Then the next part is, do you think both of these can be maintained without totally affecting one another? So you take your opinion. Yes, it can be maintained. No, it cannot be maintained. And you mention a why. Why it cannot be done or it can be done, that you mention what reasons for it, and your conclusion, which is like a maybe a 3 or 4 points, like for half a page. Your conclusion should be half a page, and it should be like how to balance this actually and how to go for way forward, how part should be there. So for ethics questions, what I generally do is think about the why part, think about the how part, then you will get more points, like why is it there or how it can be done, how it cannot be done. All of that when you think of, then you get a little dimensions. This is what I think you can do in that question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think it has been very long session, but I hope it has been of some use to whoever has attended.
It was very useful and it was wonderful. Thank you, Archana, for enlightening us. And we wish to see you more once you're free.
Sure.
Thank you.
I to join. All the best to everyone.
Thank you. So we will be having more sessions. So you can join the Telegram channel. I have given you the link. And if you wish to join the program, give me a call. I'll be happy to help you. Thank you.